This is without a doubt one of the strongest isekai characters of all time. Most, if not all of his powers could easily be described as godlike. In one of his weakest states, he'd be able to summon a meteor from the sky, with the same meteor being able to take out an army of 10,000 men. And there are way more overpowered abilities that this guy can use. The extent of his abilities are actually ridiculous. He can easily defeat your favorite anime character, and there's nothing you can say to doubt it. A move I guarantee not a single character is going to be able to do anything about would be Seiya's ability to transform any target into whatever he wants. He can shapeshift anything into whatever he wants. Easily, he can just turn you into an ant and then step on you. A fight can be that simple. Really, when you think about it, these are some insanely deadly abilities that he has. We're really only getting started. Seiya has some of the most perfect counters that can be used against anyone in anime, making him invincible from anybody using time abilities on him. Yes, if you use time, it is not going to work on him because he would be completely immune to anyone pausing time, fast forwarding it, slowing down. You get the idea. Thanks to his ability Anti-Clock Field, time attacks are just not going to work, making Seiya have control over space and time. And if this isn't one of the most obvious abilities an overpowered character should have, yes, he can definitely fly. Most of the time, his speed would be described as instantaneous, allowing no one to even notice, let alone see how fast he is when he's about to attack someone. His speed and reactions would allow him to react to enemies that are as fast as lightning. With his ability of flight and his insane speed, Seiya would have really insane movement options. Movement options aside, his planning would be second to none because after all, he is the overly cautious hero. One of his best aspects is dissecting any person that he fights and making the impossible possible. For starters, let's just talk about his defense. Honestly, I don't think anyone is going to be able to scratch him, let alone tickle him, due to his resistances. He would be resistant to fire, wind, water, lightning, ice, earth, holy magic, dark magic, poison, paralysis, sleep, curses, instant death, and anything that can practically hold him back, which would be status ailments. He can't be tired, sick, or anything of the sort. So Seiya can't be confused, angered, or even charmed by anyone. Honestly, I don't really know how anyone is going to damage him when he's resistant to almost everything. Being resistant to instant death is ridiculous. And that's just his defensive properties that he has an advantage of. Seiya himself can easily rip through a person's defense without even trying in one of his weakest states. As a mere level 7, he would know the oscillatory wave attack, which can go through impenetrable defenses by adjusting and creating a disturbance in a being's molecular structure. Seiya can attack people on a molecular level by causing vibrations to rupture their insides. More often than not, he can easily knock someone out just by using this. With that being said, this is just one ability that Seiya has, but you cannot defend against him. Long story short though, Seiya can damage your DNA. For example, he'd be fighting an enemy that would use black flames, and these black flames, if they were to ever touch a target, they would not stop and they would burn them to ash. These flames would never go out, but thanks to Seiya being able to attack someone's DNA and disturb them on a molecular level, he'd make it so that these black flames would turn into normal flames, meaning he can change his opponent's attack properties. Seiya can make your fire attack no longer burn, and that's a disgusting level of control. If an enemy could cut through space with a weapon by hitting them with these vibrations, he can make it so they no longer can cut through space. Your strongest attacks mean nothing to this character. Oddly enough though, every single ability that Seiya is resistant to, he can use. He would specialize in using the fire element, and he would do things that you would never suspect a fire user to ever do, giving him a unique sense of power in comparison to most anime characters. His fire would give him one of the best fire abilities I've ever seen. He would use Automatic Phoenix, which is insanely unique, I have to say. This ability would create phoenixes that would home in and automatically kill whatever Seiya wants dead. These phoenixes are as good as a fire ability can be and should be. Literally, he can summon thousands of these birds that will find everything in an area and completely destroy them. leaving them into being nothing more than piles of ash. These phoenixes would be considered nothing more than cleanup. You can't run from them and you can't hide from them because they will find you and hit you no matter what. It's ridiculous. He would also have way more phoenix techniques right after this. Phoenix Spear would let him summon fire spears that come out from the ground and impale and burn anything that comes into contact with them, and he would be able to shoot these spears from his hands like missiles. As soon as any one of these come into contact with a target, they explode and the entire area would become a lake of fire, and it would also burn the air. It's really hard to imagine someone surviving one of these attacks. I guarantee even if you survive one of these, you're going to be completely dehydrated afterwards. These spears would explode and turn anything into ash on impact. His next Phoenix technique would be completely different. Unlike the spears, this would involve actual sword play, giving him Phoenix Drive. Phoenix Drive is a move that'd definitely be a lot more close to home. Whenever he swings his sword, you would never even see it coming. All you would see is a blur in the air, and instantaneously, it can easily cut through anyone like butter. But get this, it's a lot more worse because when coming into contact with this blade, you would turn into ash. A lot of these fire abilities turn his opponents into nothing, which makes him very akin to Gen Ryuuguuin from Bleach, if you want to be honest. And we all know how strong he is. Phoenix Drive would be so fast and so hot that it would leave red lines behind every single sword slash, with each and every slice being so fast that it would leave behind an explosion that would scorch wind. This is guaranteed to kill anyone because really, you're going to be chopped into bits, and then right afterwards, those body parts that are left behind after being sliced open are going to explode. These fire abilities are meant to kill easily. You can notice a pattern here because there's not supposed to be a single chance of surviving, which ties into how cautious Seiya is. His final technique involving a sword would be Phoenix Thrust, and he would concentrate all of his fire into one strike, which would allow him to pierce through enemy defenses. Phoenix Drive would not be able to pierce through defenses, but Phoenix Thrust would because he would be able to concentrate all of his firepower. Phoenix Drive would more or less be used to guarantee a kill, while Phoenix Thrust would more than likely be used to break through defenses. But it can also be used to kill as well. Its only drawback is that it's not going to leave anyone into a bunch of pieces. They would be more than likely to survive attack from Phoenix Thrust rather than Phoenix Drive. Seiya can also use fire salamanders, and this would really express his tactical genius. Unlike the Phoenixes, the salamanders would be a lot more conventional because he can send them on the ground and have them search every single part of a village. They'd be able to go inside of buildings, unlike the Phoenixes, which would only be able to find specific targets that are out in the open. The difference between the Phoenix and the salamanders is that both of them are supposed to be used in completely different situations. This should hit home the idea that nothing can escape Seiya because if a Phoenix doesn't work, he can always use a salamander, and he can also see through the salamander's eyes himself, have them stealth inside of buildings, and much more. One of Seiya's earliest moves would be Hellfire. This would allow him to spew fire and just burn anything into ashes that comes into contact with these flames. In comparison to the Phoenix techniques, rather than having to get up and close or aim a Phoenix Spear, what he can do is just spew fire mindlessly and burn anything in his path. As you can tell, his fire abilities have different uses for different occasions and approaches that he wants to use. If he doesn't want to think, he can use Hellfire. If he wants to use his brains, he can use the Phoenix techniques. However, his final technique out of fire abilities would be Maximum Inferno. This move would be way stronger than Hellfire, but unlike Hellfire just being a massive array of flames, Maximum Inferno would be a giant explosion. What this explosion does is what makes it so terrifying. It would destroy and burn everything within 10 meters. Everything within this radius would be gone. It would be ash. They would practically be erased. Even though Seiya specializes in fire, he can use a lot more elements than you think. On the contrary to fire, he'd be able to use ice. He can create an ice sword as a weapon, but most importantly, he would use Fenrir Shot. He would shoot over 100 crystals from his hand that all attack at once. The closer he is to you, the more damage he will do. It is compared to that of a shotgun, but what makes this so dangerous is that when being hit by one of these shots, you would immediately stagger and lose your balance. And he would be able to shoot these icicles pretty much forever. And of course, when they hit you, they would be able to freeze you. So if he were to fight an immortal or anyone else along those lines, you can just freeze them and win a fight that way. The ice obviously would work completely opposite to that of the fire. Rather than burning them to nothing, he can freeze them, so much so that he would freeze their brains and they would die. Next, he would be able to use wind, and this would allow him to create a wind sword. What makes this wind sword so special is that it would have the speed of lightning backing it. But what separates it from every other elemental sword is the fact that it would create a distortion in the air and blast air pressure at enemies, cutting them in half. Now, he can make 2 wind swords and double the amount of projectiles that he's firing at an enemy, and even adjust the formations of each projectile so he can make it so it's way harder to dodge any of these attacks. By holding his swords in the shape of a cross, he would cover more space and make it harder for enemies to dodge. On top of this, he would have wind shield, which would create a barrier of wind that would blow away any attack that tries to kill him. And if some way somehow you do end up getting past this wind shield, you're still gonna have to deal with Seiya's insane defense. Now, you could argue that this is situational because he would use this as defense against a black mist, and this same black mist would also decay anything it touches, turning all of the surroundings into dust. Now, of course, it's going to work on black mist, but I definitely don't doubt that this would be able to blow away fire and any other attacks. After wind, we would have lightning, and he would use the ability Thunder Strike, which would surge electricity through any enemy. But the best part about this lightning is the fact that it can paralyze enemies, leaving them completely vulnerable to an attack. So combining this lightning with a meteor, it'd be pretty easy for Seiya to kill someone, even if he's struggling to land an attack. Because of course this is lightning, and it's going to be hard for anybody to dodge the speed of lightning. I'd argue Earth is easily one of Seiya's best elements. In a complete contrast to phoenixes and salamanders, he would use Earth serpents. They'd be able to survey areas and find anyone inside of a town. Not only this, but he can turn them into mines and put them underground, leaving them to explode if an unlucky person were to step on one of them. They can also constrict opponents and make it so that they can't move, completely strangling them with their rocky bodies. They can also give Seiya equipment when he needs it, making them a lot more convenient than fire salamanders and phoenixes. One of his strongest moves out of Earth magic would be called Endless Fall. This, honestly, could be seen as one of his strongest abilities. By simply extending his hand into someone's direction, they would get sucked into the ground and be devoured by the Earth's core. They would fall into the ground for a few thousand kilometers. If they're not going to be stuck underground for the rest of their lives or suffocate, they're going to fall into the Earth's core and melt. This is an instant kill, and the only way to stop it is by flying. But the minute you touch the ground, you're as good as dead. Even then, he can use his serpents and combine them with Endless Fall, having them drag you down to the ground into your impending doom. His earth manipulation would still go above and beyond this. He'd be able to create iron walls around an entire city instantly. This makes for a great defensive option, and it gives him enough time to prepare for a new attack. Earth as an element would even come with its own mobility options, letting Seiya use Cave Along, which creates a cave that allows him to traverse through soil without suffocating or dying. Seiya would essentially dig through the ground as if you're playing Dig Dug. What makes this a necessary asset in a fight is how he can use Clear Ceiling while hiding himself under the ground. He'd be able to see anyone above ground and attack them because his ability would make the entire ceiling transparent. So he's able to snipe people from underground without them ever being able to reach him. And he can see them and attack them while underneath the Earth's crust. It's the perfect shield, and it's impossible to find him unless you have some crazy sensory abilities. Through the power of darkness, by using Phantom Hands, he'd be able to damage deities and angels just by touching them. He would also be able to seal an enemy's movement, causing them to no longer to be able to fight. These Phantom Hands are really broken because they can let Seiya fight back gods. Honestly, Seiya's dark magic is a lot to be desired, but his holy magic is in another league. You see, with the use of holy magic, Seiya would be capable of cutting through space itself by using his ability Dimension Blade. Yeah, you're definitely not defending against this sword at all, and any kind of defense is just not going to work because he's cutting through space, and we all know how broken that is. This next move was something I wasn't really expecting from him. He would control aura out of his body and create a giant cage that he can trap anyone in. Once trapped inside, you're practically a fish in a barrel because what he can do is just use an everlasting ray that will never ever go out, and it will indefinitely reflect inside of the cage, and basically the laser is going to shoot at you forever. He can shoot thousands and thousands of these lasers in that one cage, leaving nothing left of your body. If he uses that, if he catches you inside of that cage, you're as good as dead. I can't really make this up. His projectile weapon while using holy magic would be the shining arrow. What's so amazing about this is the very fact that when he would use this arrow, he would have the same level of archery skill as the goddess of archery, meaning that he would be god level when it comes to using arrows. The shining arrow itself would destroy anything it touches in the blink of an eye. He would even be able to shoot 7 of these shining arrows at once, which would be stated to be impossible to dodge. Seiya would literally have an attack that you cannot dodge. No matter what, you're going to be hit by these arrows. Even when using a sword by itself and not using magic, he's capable of some insane stuff. Using atomic split slash, he would make fissures in the ground and destroy entire throne rooms like it's nothing. And when he makes contact with his sword on anything, it can turn into dust. It's really hard to say if anything is going to survive fighting Seiya. He has so many different moves that will guarantee that he's going to kill you. Seiya's sword slices would be as fast as lightning, which would be mentioned while he's using the eternal sword. To make Seiya even more unbelievable than he already is, he can also attack ghosts with his Valkyrie technique, completely chaining them down. Counterbreak is the next Valkyrie technique, but this would be much like a double-edged sword. By cutting off his own arm, Seiya can also make it so that his opponent's arm will also cut off. If he loses an arm, his opponent is going to lose their arm. When possessing a sword, the Valkyrie technique, Crimson Boom, would have over 1 million attack power. But I doubt that's the least of anyone's worries because he can use Shattered Break, which destroys and ignores defense. If an enemy is stronger than Seiya, which is pretty unlikely, he can still damage them no matter what because, again, he can ignore their defense and hurt them regardless. With the final Valkyrie technique, Valhalla Gate, this move would transcend the very laws of causality, making it so that he can kill anyone and anything. He can kill living things and non-living things just by using this move. This move is a guaranteed death and arguably his strongest move ever. The Valkyrie techniques are a pretty nice cheat at times, and I gotta guarantee they are not the only techniques that are gonna let him win with ease. He can use Drain Charged Attack. And when using this, he can absorb his opponent's power just by blocking their attacks. So yes, just by defending, and he can do this against any attack. He's going to take their power and use it against them. So if you throw a Spirit Bomb this guy's way, he's easily just gonna absorb it and do it right back and put his own energy behind it. I really don't think that there are any chances of surviving. His draining powers would be even stronger because he can use the Holy Power Draining Sword. With a single swing of this sword, it can make a person die instantly and it can erode their bodies, turning them into an old woman or man. Long story short, being hit by the sword or being close to it is going to kill you. The sword would be capable of aging and weakening gods. Draining magic is one of the best counters he can use. And if countering is out of the question, stealth is always possible because Seiya can turn invisible. And he would be capable of turning the people around him invisible. The ability of flight combined with invisibility, I don't think it's going to be easy trying to hit him. I can't lie though, it's really hard imagining him having to use stealth, especially in a 1v1, because he can use mimicry and copy his opponent's abilities, completely canceling out everything that they do. Being able to copy abilities on top of everything that we've already covered in this video, there's literally no excuse that would make sense for Seiya to lose against anyone. How does he fare against other isekai characters such as Rimuru, the 7th Prince, or Goburo? He can copy their abilities, which means that he could stand in their league. By simply copying their abilities, he can have the possibility of defeating them. This, on top of the fact that his Berserker mode would triple all of his stats, can make any move that he copies 3 times stronger than what it would be from its user. With that being said, he can be a 3 times stronger version of a person that he's fighting. His speed in Berserk mode would allow him to dodge lasers and deflect them with his sword. Now, if he's fast enough to dodge lasers, he would be as fast as light speed. And finally, he can rip souls out of anyone's body by using Ghost Bite, and he can transfer souls into whatever he wants. Seiya is without a doubt godlike, with all of his abilities letting him rain down meteors, fly, turn invisible, break through defenses, manipulate enemies at a molecular molecular level, control all the elements, move at light speed, and practically use magic forever without running out of MP, transform anyone into anything he wants, drain a being's existence with just a sword, and being close to them, being able to cut through space. Just by putting his hand in your general direction, he can send you to the Earth's core and make you die. And he has the Gate of Valhalla, which is just gonna kill you no matter what, even if you're already dead. There's no stopping him. And so much more. I can easily give Seiya the godlike, if not god ranking. It seems like I'm giving out the god card a lot in these videos, but he would be probably just a little bit below that. And honestly, these guys are just that strong. Mimicry would be a sole reason as to why I would put him in the upper echelons of Isekai's strongest. He can use any of his opponent's abilities right back at them. Now he's not creating or defying laws, but he automatically is on a leveled playing field compared to other Isekai protagonists. This, on top of what he already has, gives him more than enough to fight the best of the best. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out these 2 other videos that are showing up on your screen right now. You're not going to regret it.